it started to sound to me like a lot like yesterday's live. So I decided I was going to do something different. And that's what I'm going to share today. Today I'm doing a totally different live, not the one I've been advertising. And I'm doing that on purpose because on Tuesday, when we were in Grief Study Hall, we started to talk. And one of the people in the group started talking about acceptance, accepting their loss, accepting the person who they had lost, and truly being a person who was sort of like, how do I get to acceptance? What is acceptance? What is acceptance in grief? And that's when I decided that I need to break this down. I need to break down the difference between acknowledge and acceptance. And why do I say that? Why do I say we should go to acknowledge and not to acceptance? Why do I do that? And why is that a thing? And so that's what I'm going to teach today. I originally was going to teach about holding on to the pain, but when I started to break it down, it sounded a lot like yesterday's class. So if you came here because you thought you were going to see that, I will teach that, but it's just not going to be today. And I hope you're okay with that. So let's get into it. Let's get into it, TikTok. Let's get into it, Facebook. They told you that in order to heal, you have to accept it. One of the things that they are telling us is that we have to accept what has happened to us. And I want you guys to understand, as far as I'm concerned, that's a lie that so many grievers get stuck, and it causes people to get stuck in their pain. I can't even tell you how many times I'm on the live, how many times I'm working with a client, and they say to me, when will I get to acceptance? It is absolutely, hey, Suzanne, my love, it is absolutely something that people absolutely say. Grievers get stuck in their pain that they were never meant to carry forever because they think they're supposed to get in this thing called acceptance. What if you never accept the loss? Does that mean that you haven't healed? What if you never get to acceptance? Hey, Marianne. What if you never say, this is okay? I lost my child, but it's okay. And how does that even sound? How does that even sound? And I'll have to ask her. I would absolutely have to ask Erica, are you ever going to be to a part where you feel like it's okay? You lost your kids, but it's okay. I don't think we ever get to that. And if we never get to acceptance, does it mean we grieve forever? Is that what it means? It means for the rest of our life, we're going to grieve. No. You do not have to accept your loss in order to heal. But you do have to stop running from it. I'm going to say that again. You do not have to accept this loss in order to heal. You do not have to have this profound acceptance moment. But you do have to stop running from it. You have to stop trying to get away from it. In today's live, I want to break down the real difference between acknowledgement and acceptance. What those mean. What those mean for us, the griever. And why we've been sold this version in grief that we have to get acceptance to have true recovery. You've been sold a version of grief that isn't true, it isn't fair, and it isn't working for you. If you felt guilty for not being further along than you are, this lesson's for you. If you're waiting to feel really ready to do the work, then this lesson's for you. If you're tired of holding it in all of the time, then this lesson's for you. This is the lesson that you need and come into this live. This is what you're going to get. This will change how you see grief. It will change how you see healing, and it's going to change how you're going to move in this grief. And I want to welcome everybody here today. My name is Sharon Brubaker, and I'm a grief specialist. I sit with women who are grieving, and I teach an educational program on grief and loss. I talk to you about grieving, what it really means, what it means to go through it. I sit with women so they can feel heard, understood, and supported. But while I'm sitting with you, I'm also teaching you. In 2006, my nephew Austin drowned at the lake. It was at that moment I realized I didn't know anything about grief. Hey, Tracy, I didn't know how to move beyond the pain of grief. But more importantly, I didn't think I was going to grieve. Listen to how naive this is. I thought Erica and Lewis would grieve, and it would be my job to be the support. I learned that from my parents when I was 16 years old and my aunt died tragically. I saw my parents support my uncle and the family, and I thought I was in the same position. In 2006, not 2006, I take that back. In 2007, I went out on a mission to find everything I could about grief and loss, to fix my sister because she was broken. And you know what I found out? I found out that none of us know how to grieve, that there's no information out there on how to grieve, that they did not write a book giving us all the answers. So I decided to write the book, and I started putting it together. And that first book that I wrote is called The Griever's Guide, and I wrote it with Erica. So let's get into it. They say, who are they, first of all? They say, okay, I'm going to tell you guys who they are. They're all these old men, and they wear white wigs. They sit in this room, and they make rules for us. That's who I think they are. They sit in a room, and they make rules for us. And they are telling us how we have to grieve. And they say we have to get to acceptance in order to heal. And I absolutely don't believe that. And today I'm going to show you why this belief has kept so many people stuck in their grief. This isn't just about language. It is about freedom. You can't just tell somebody that they have to get to acceptance. Friends, I can't even begin to tell you how many times people have come in here and asked me, when will they get to acceptance? Or how do they get to acceptance? Or what is acceptance? And when do you get to that? And I want you to know that healing is possible even if you never accept the loss. This is, to me, sounds crazy now that I'm saying it out loud. So they're telling me that I have to accept that Austin drowned at the lake at 10 years old on Father's Day weekend with my brother-in-law and my brother and my daughter Brittany in tow. Austin drowned. And I have to say, I accept that and it's okay. No, I'm never going to accept that. I'm never going to accept that I live in a world that was okay with a 10-year-old child drowning. I don't accept that. I don't accept that I had a best friend that I told everything to, and she and I would talk all the time. And she was my guide. She was my leader, and she was my person. And I was her person. And that somewhere along the way, she got this thing called the cancer monster. And she was taken from me. And I have to accept that in order to live a life worthy of living? No, I don't accept that. If you're just joining in here, my name is Sharon Brubeck. I went ahead and introduced myself. I'm a grief specialist. I've spent the last 18 years walking with women who are heartbroken. Not just handing them tools, but standing beside them in the fire, holding their hand as they go through this. And one of the things that I do not teach is acceptance. I have seen this one belief that people have do damage that is unforgivable sometimes, I think. In order for you to move forward, you have to accept the loss. You have to say, this happened and I'm okay with it in order to be in acceptance. And I'm sorry, I just am never going to get there. That if you never reach this level of peace, you'll be stuck in grief forever. Acceptance has this form like once you get there, it's going to be peaceful and the grief is going to be easier. And that is not only false, it's harmful, because I have a ton of grievers trying to get to acceptance and they are crawling their way out, thinking they're going to get to this spot in their life where they're going to be at acceptance and everything is going to be okay. Let's start talking about where this came from, because I want you to know that it didn't come from grievers. This did not come from grievers. It came from a framework that has been misunderstood for decades. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, The 5 Stages of Grief. It came out of that. It is one of the stages. And you've probably heard them: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally we get to acceptance. I'm not going to break down all the stages here, but what you might not know is that these stages were not written for people who are grieving. Even on the front cover of her book, it says, for clergy, nurses, doctors. It doesn't say for grievers. The front of her book never says for grievers. And you go through the book, and she is literally talking about the person who has been given a life-altering diagnosis. These stages were not written for the grieving person. They were not written for the person who is lost. And in that stage, people are looking for acceptance. They're looking to get to acceptance. Here's the other thing. There are many times, and this is a side note, and I'll bring that back, that people will come and tell me that they're in denial. And I'm going to do another class on denial, so you know, but let's just stick with acceptance for right now. But they pick a stage, they say that's where they're at, and then they come and tell me about it. But I want to ask you this. How do you get to acceptance? And what is acceptance for you? They were written for people who are dying. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross created this model while working with terminally ill patients. She brought us something fabulous, you guys. She brought us hospice. She wrote her thesis on hospice, and then she went out and laid out hospice. Can you imagine? If we didn't have a Dr. Kubler-Ross, we would never have a hospice. From what I understand from my trainings is that she actually wrote out 13 stages. She wrote out these 13 stages, and they were for the interns. They were for the interns to go into the dying patient's room, look at the dying patient, interview the dying patient. There would be many interns in the room with Dr. Kubler-Ross. She would be doing the interview, or one of the interns would be doing the interview. They would step out into the hallway, and now they have this list of stages that they can quickly say to her, he's in stage 1, he's in denial, he's in anger, and then they can have the conversation, they can move on. The disservice happened when one of her interns took the stages after he left his internship, became a psychiatrist, and actually took the stages, pulled out 5, and attached them to grief. She was given the credit for them, and she never said this wasn't true. And that's where the disservice happens. When we talk about the final stage, acceptance, it's originally meant for something very specific: acceptance. It was always meant for something specific. It was meant for the dying person to finally accept their fate, not for the griever. It was meant for the dying patient to say, okay, this is my life, and for them to prepare for what was going to happen to them. I absolutely 100% saw my father and my best friend Sharon go through the stages. And if you're aware that they're going to go through the stages, you walk in the room prepared for them to be in one of the stages. I saw Sharon and my dad both go through denial and say, no, we have to get in a second opinion. No, we have to do this. They absolutely fought. They went through denial. They couldn't believe their diagnosis. They kept going back. I saw both my dad and Sharon both do this. I saw them both go through acceptance. I was sitting in the hospital room with Sharon, and the room was dark. And she called me Cher. Hey, Cher, And she started to say something, and then it went quiet. It was about 2 weeks before she died. I'm pretty sure it was like 2 weeks before she died. And I said, just in the dark, it went quiet. We were just sitting there. And I said, are you scared? That's all I said. And she said, no, I'm not scared. That was her acceptance. Because prior to that, her kids were doing the second opinion thing. They were trying to get the second opinion thing. It was always meant that a person should acknowledge, I'm going to die. I don't want to do this. I didn't choose this. But I accept that this is happening to me. That's what Sharon was saying to me. I don't want to do this. I know this is happening. I got this. I'm not scared. But I accept that this is happening to me. That is very different from a grieving mother trying to tell me, I have to accept this. I have to accept that my child has died. I have to accept that I'm a widow now. I have to accept that I'll never hold my partner again. We will never hold hands. I have to accept that we're never going to have pillow talk again. I have to accept that I can't pick up the phone and call my mom. Friends, think about that. That's where resistance comes from. The resistance comes from us trying to accept that this is never going to happen again. And so we start to push back against that thing that we call acceptance. It is a completely different context. Over the years, the 5 stages have never applied to any kind of grief. It has never been a checklist for us to go through. It was never laid out for us to go through this checklist. And first of all, this was the thing that Erica and I couldn't figure out. I want to cuss. What freaking order do they go in? And you can fill in the blank for freaking. What freaking order do they go in? Are you in acceptance? And then you go to the denial, and then you go to bargaining, then you go to this? What order do they go in? How long do you stay in each stage? Where do the stages fit in? And let's say you mentally think you went through denial, bargaining, depression, and all that. And then you're like, okay, when do I get to acceptance? Because you're grieving big time. And you're walking around going, okay, when do I get to acceptance? This like crawling through the dark, trying to figure out acceptance. When you've never got to the acceptance, you start to think you failed. I'm not doing grief right. I should be in acceptance by now. And people start thinking that they literally are failing at the grief because they haven't gotten to the acceptance. As if healing means reaching this final stage of acceptance. That when I get there, my heart is going to feel better. My love is going to feel better. Debbie says, you just made me realize I too watched my mom go through the stages. Yes, you did. And I wish, because when we enter hospice, they do give us a book, right? They give us that book, The Final Farewell. I wish right in the front they would break down the stages, because they say, hey, look for this. Look for these things. So let's break it down according to the dictionary. Acceptance means the action of consenting to receive or undertaking something offered. Debbie, I want to talk to you about that, because my mom didn't give me the book until the last 2 weeks of my dad dying, and I was so frustrated with that. I wish I had it earlier. But I will talk about that in the next slide. I just reordered the book because I want to do a teaching out of it. According to the dictionary, I want you guys to hear this. Acceptance means, according to Webster's, the action of consenting to receive. Raise your hand if you went through the action and you consented to receive what happened to you. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you undertook something offered. Hey, Debbie, mom's dying. Do you accept this? The key word here is consent. Did you consent to receive this? It means that you agreed to take it, that you said yes to it. And let's be real. Did you consent to your person dying? Did you say yes to the heartbreak that you were going to go through? Did you agree to wake up in a world where they were no longer here? I imagine that most of you said no. And if that's the truth, then none of you really consented to this. And if you didn't consent to this, then there is nothing called acceptance. I'm so sorry to tell you guys, you will never get to something called acceptance. So stop trying to get there. Stop trying to get to acceptance, because it is not a place that you will arrive to. Let me define the second word that I use in exchange for acceptance. Acknowledgement. Acknowledgement means, or acknowledge, Webster's Dictionary, to admit the existence of something true. To admit to yourself that something is true. Totally different. Not agreement, but just to admit. Not permission. It's simply naming what is real. Hear me out. It is simply naming what is real. We start, the first acceptance acknowledgement we come to is that I am grieving. I am a griever. I am now a griever. That's your first acknowledgement. You don't have to acknowledge they died. You just have to acknowledge you're a griever. It's the first thing. It's a baby step. Once you acknowledge that you're the griever, there is so much more that you can do with working on your broken heart. There's so many of us out there like this. Nope, 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 not doing it, not doing it, nope. When you put your hands down, even if your arms are crossed, and you say, okay, I'm a griever, it's a huge difference. I acknowledge that I lost them. I acknowledge that this pain is real. I acknowledge that I'm in pain. And eventually, when you're ready, I acknowledge that they died. Acceptance sounds like this. I'm okay with it. I've made peace with it. I consent to carrying this for the rest of my life. If you want acceptance, please, by all means, go ahead and take it. I'm just not doing it. There's a huge difference. And for most grievers, that difference determines whether they ever begin to heal or whether they just stay stuck. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. Hold on, Grandma Babe. Have you felt guilty for not reaching acceptance? Yes or no? Have you felt guilty for not reaching acceptance? And I guess my question is, before that, are you trying to reach acceptance? Are you trying to reach acceptance? That's my question. Did you think that was something that you needed to be at? Tracy says no. Did you think acceptance? Grandma Babe says yes, she was. Flagro says no. Yes or no? Yes or no? Have you believed that you're failing at grief because you can't make peace with it? Do you think you're failing at grief because you can't make peace with it? Yes or no? I was led to believe that I would. You were led to believe that you would eventually make peace with this? Hey, Miss Oakley, how are you doing? So Angelica says, yes, I've been trying to get to acceptance and struggling with it because it's not a place that you arrive. Acknowledgement is the place that we start. We start at acknowledging that we're grievers. Acceptance means consent. You consented to what has just happened to you. Man, this should be blowing your mind right open. You never have to let him go, Flaw Girl. You're never letting him go. Your relationship with him is different. And I call it a spiritual relationship versus a physical relationship. Spiritual means I can think about him. I have him in my heart. I have him in my soul. I can talk about him. A spiritual relationship. I see him in the colors of the universe. I see him in the rainbow. I see him in the dragonflies. Such a different relationship. Then I'm got to let go of him. We work through completing the release of the physical relationship, yes. Because here's the truth. Healing doesn't happen at the end of acceptance. Healing happens at the beginning of telling the truth, Angelica. I am a griever. I have loss. I have lost my person. Let's talk about what healing actually looks like. In the work at the grief school, I teach a process that doesn't demand acceptance. I never have and I never will. We start by talking it out. This is what we do at the grief school. We start by talking it out. This is what I do in the lives. We start by naming the pain, naming the reality, letting yourself be heard. We have to give voice to what has happened to us. We also need to learn, and this is huge. This is the first one, the second step. We have to learn how to lean into this. Grandma Babe, that's what you're asking. So I'm going to answer that question now. She says, Grandma Babe says, how do I get rid of sudden anger? Don't try to get rid of it. Don't try to get rid of it. Friends, when your emotions come, do not try to get rid of it. Leaning into your emotions and your pain is what I teach you in processing the pain of grief. Processing the pain of grief is where I actually name grief, tell you what your grief is, and show you how to process grief. We're going to process grief for many, many days before we actually start working on the grief. Instead of avoiding the grief, instead of numbing out the grief with wine, we face the pain. We acknowledge that I'm in anger. I'm so pissed right now. I'm so angry. I'm angry at you. I'm angry that you left me. I'm angry that you left me alone. I'm angry that you left me here. You name it, what it is. And then you lean into it. Grief sucks. And we lean into the suck 100%. Instead of avoiding it, instead of numbing it. And most important, I educate in the grief school. I educate you on what grief is, what it was really meant to be. Friends, I haven't done this for 18 years just to sit around and do nothing. But it was at someone else I even wanted to hit. First of all, don't hit. That's not nice. Just kidding. It doesn't matter if it's at someone else. We still approach the anger the same way. Today has been one of those days, one of the angry days. Okay, right there. I acknowledge today is an angry day. I'm in anger today. I'm mad at you for leaving me. I'm mad at you for what you said. I'm mad at you for what you did. Then I want you guys to grab out a piece of paper and do a brain dump. Dump out what you're angry at. Instead of punching, you got another weapon, and it is a pencil. Grab a pencil, a piece of paper, and write anger on it. And then start writing all the things that you're angry about. Take that energy and get it out. Angelica, I've never been angry in my grief. I personally have never had anger. I didn't have anger with Austin. I didn't have anger with my dad. I didn't have anger with Sharon, and I didn't have anger with Donovan. I sat with my sister, Erica, for 1 year when she was so mad at the world, at God, at everyone for having to go through the loss of Donovan. I personally have never had anger. And I want you guys all to know anger is not something that everyone has. Not everyone has anger. But here's the other deal. If you have anger, I'm totally okay with it. We all have emotion. We have this thing called emotions. Anger is an emotion. Anger is going to show up on an emotional experience. Grief is an emotional experience that takes place in our heart. Anger is an emotion. It's going to show up for us. Flower Girl says, God is who I'm angry with. I honor that, my love. I honor that. I honor your heart. I honor your anger. And I honor that you're mad at God. Hear me out, my friends. You absolutely can be mad at God. Guess what? He's got some big shoulders. She has some really big shoulders. Be mad at God. It is absolutely okay. That was one of the people that Erica was mad at. And I'm pretty sure she wrote about it in her book. My name is Sharon Brubaker. I'm the grief specialist and owner of the Grief School. My sister Erica lost 2 children. She lost Donovan and Austin. She lost Austin first, then Donovan. If you go to the link in my bio, there you can find her book. And you can purchase her book. And she talks about her anger in the book. She was angry at people that had children. She was angry at God because she felt she already gave one. She was angry at families that got together. She was angry at people that stayed together. Thank you, Suzanne. I never did it until now, but my ex just died a week ago. My heart to yours. And I never get angry. Here's the other thing I want you guys to understand. To say I've never been angry, it could be that you have always had anger, but you have suppressed that anger due to life circumstances. Okay? So I'm going to jump back into the live that I was talking about. We start by talking it out. We have to talk. Grievers have to talk. They have to tell what happened to them. Why? Because it's an out-of-body experience. When you start to talk, you step outside of your body and you watch this thing called grief that's happening to you. That's number 1. Number 2, we lean in. This is what I teach at the Grief School. We lean into the pain. We allow the pain and we lean into it. This is all part of acknowledging it. And then we learn how to complete. I educate you on how to complete. Where is it happening in your body? What's happening in your mind? What's happening in your nervous system? That's part of the learning. We complete our relationship to the pain. We complete our relationship to the isolation. We complete our relationship to the loneliness. We complete our relationship to anything left unsaid. I'm really mad that you left me here to deal with this. We complete our pain to all of the feeling trapped in our chest. And in all of that, I never once said we get to acceptance because it's not a thing. You do not get to acceptance. There's nothing in the process that demands that says, okay, and when I get to acceptance, I'll be happy now. Because maybe you'll never be there. Maybe your healing isn't about peace with the loss. Maybe your healing is about peace with yourself. Maybe it's about peace with yourself. Let me ask you something. What if you never get to acceptance? Will you be okay? Will you be okay if you never get to acceptance? If you never get to acceptance, does it mean you will grieve forever? And there's one answer to that question, and that is no. Because acceptance is not somewhere we're going to arrive at. It is not our goal here. Our goal is to do a full review of our relationship and complete the pain, isolation, and loneliness. Suzanne says, I would rather have completeness in a relationship than acceptance. Man, Suzanne, can you imagine I would imagine there's still parts that you are not going to accept. I can only imagine that. Can we heal without acceptance and loss? Can we build a new life without being okay with what happened? Can we build a life without being okay with what happened? Can we create beauty in the world without being okay with what happened? Can we find joy again? Can we breathe deeply again? Without ever having to say, well, this was okay. It was meant to be. I can't imagine Erica ever saying that. It was meant to be. This is the way it was supposed to be. Because what heals is not the acceptance of the event. What heals is our heart. What heals is the brokenness in our heart. What heals is our willingness to stop fighting the pain. Let me say that again. What heals is our willingness to stop fighting the pain and start processing it. Grief was never meant to last forever. It was not meant to be a struggle or a fight for you. Grief was not meant to be avoided. It was not meant to be stuffed down. And it definitely wasn't meant to be pretended, to pretend that it's okay. Those are the things that keep us stuck. I think for years there have been people out there that have gone to this fake acceptance and just moved on. Okay, I'm acceptance now. My heart hurts just thinking about all the people that have had before us that have had to pretend for so long. You do not heal by pretending that you're okay. You do not heal by pretending that you have come to acceptance. You do not heal by pretending you're further along than you ever thought you would be. You heal by telling the truth. You tell the truth of where you are. Right now, Grandma Babe says, I'm angry. Fly Girl says, I'm having an angry day today. Angelica says, hey, have you ever had anger? Like we're breaking it down. We're talking about anger. We're throwing it in there. That's the truth. We tell the truth in grief always. We tell the truth about who we are, where we are, what we're feeling. And we grieve on purpose. We grieve on purpose. There is no healing, Suzanne says, there's no healing pretending or avoiding. Grandma Babe says, I say that, well, it's been almost a year and I need to quit it. You need to quit what? You need to quit grieving? We need to start working on it. I have a question for all of you. Yes or no? Are you willing to grieve on purpose? Are you willing to grieve on purpose? Yes or no? Are you open to facing the pain instead of resisting it? Yes or no? Are you open to facing pain instead of resisting it? Yes or no? Suzanne says, ready, willing, and able. Would you like to feel peace? Yes or no? Even if it means for a while, not feeling okay is part of the process. Are you willing to feel peace, even if you know not feeling okay is part of the process? I think I will feel the pain regardless. No, I disagree with you 100%. Hello? I disagree with you 100%. Grievers have choices. Suffering while on this grief healing journey is a choice. It is a part of the process. It is not, we don't have to suffer. Suffering is an option. Oh, Sandra, I'm so glad you're here because this was brought up. I created this because of the question. Sorry, guys. I didn't have you open all the way, so I couldn't see what you were saying in the live. If you've answered yes, then this is the type of work that's for you. I want you to say this with me, and I want you to say it out loud. I do not accept this loss. I do not agree with what happened, but I will stop running. I will stop pretending. I will stop waiting for it to go away on its own. I'm going to repeat that. I will stop waiting for it to go away on its own. I will grieve with intention. I will feel it. I will process it, and I will heal this pain. What you just heard me say is exactly what we do inside of Grief Study Hall, and it's exactly what we do in processing the pain of grief. Processing the pain of grief is where I teach you how to grieve, how to move the emotions in your heart, how to start approaching the grief, how to go after what is broken. I do not teach acceptance. I teach truth. We tell the truth always. I teach you how to stop white knuckling it all the way and start breathing again. You do not have to be okay with what has happened to you in order to get back to life. You just have to be ready, willing, and able. Flaw Girl says, I don't agree with this pain. It's the worst pain of my life. Grandma Babe says, I can never find how the group. I'm going to have my assistant reach out to you, Grandma Babe. You just need to be honest to stop resisting and start healing. Okay, true or false? True or false? Grief is something that I will carry for the rest of my life. I asked this question in study hall on Tuesday, or maybe I asked it yesterday. Grief is something that I will carry for the rest of my life. True or false? Suzanne says no. Angelica says true. The missing them, yes, I will feel the missing them, Suzanne says. Pauline says no. Christy says no. Pauline says false. Sandra says false. Debbie says it feels like it sometimes. Yes, Debbie, especially when we're in the throes of it. It does feel like it'll be there forever. I'm going to screenshot this because I want to bring this back to Debbie later. Okay. True or false? My heart can still hurt and I can still live. True or false? My heart can still hurt and I can still live. Okay. It is false. And both of those are false because grief is not forever unless you are avoiding it or unless you choose to stay here. Missing someone doesn't mean the pain stays sharp forever. It means that you miss them. And yes, you can hurt and heal at the same time. It is all about the work that you decide to do. Here's what I want you to do today. If you haven't already gone and downloaded the Griever's Guide, I want you to get that because it's the best definition that I have ever written. And it is for you, this community. It is something that I'm offering for you. And it is the best place to start. You can find it in the link in my bio. And if you're in my on the live, you can click on the link that says Beacon AI, the Griever School. Here's the best part of the Griever's Guide. You're going to be offered a possibility to buy a 6-video series. Take it, don't take it. I get it. But the definition of grief and how to work through grief is absolutely in there. And I love that for you. We failed. We failed at what? Sandra says we failed. Yes, Laura, we will miss our person forever. I miss them all. I want them here. I totally want them here. Oh, I totally want them here. Yes, Sandra. I will miss them for the rest of my life. Man, I need Sharon. I need her here. But because we miss them doesn't mean we're broken. Because we miss them doesn't mean we're grieving. If we go after the pain of grief, the grief is gone and we are left with the missing them. Healing is possible. Even if you never use the words, I accept this. Healing is still possible because healing doesn't live at the end of acceptance. It lives at the beginning of you telling your truth, my friends, and that's where we begin. That's where we begin. Absolutely, 100%. Uh, Blockhead said, how do you deal with anticipatory grief? You allow it to be there. Whatever emotions show up for you while you're having the anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief, I will also say, is a lot, for me, was a lot of intellectual grief. How am I going to feel? Can I do this? I actually, in anticipatory grief, I tried to step in and see what I was going to feel like. I'm going to tell you this. I did this with my dad. I didn't do it with Sharon because afterwards I knew the grief was going to come. With anticipatory grief, your person is still here if they're dying. Let's say they're dying. I'm not talking about a divorce, but let's say, because you can have anticipatory grief with a divorce. Your person is still here. They're still living. Your job is to have conversations with them, talking to them, sharing with them. I love you. Thank you for allowing me to, thank you for being on this journey with me. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. You know, I never told you I was sorry about this. It's called grieving in real time, having the conversation. Where we begin our healing with the truth. We begin our healing with the truth, and we begin our healing at the grief school. Okay, friends, that's acceptance and acknowledgement. Thank you, Sandra, for asking me that question on Tuesday, because that gave me the chance to create this lesson and create the lesson for everyone. All right. So some things that are coming up. Chrissy says, welcome to my world. My typing sucks. Tonight, anyone who's in processing the pain of grief, we have the private class tonight, Honor Society, where we're walking through processing pain of grief and the definition of grief, and we're doing a full-on grief support tonight. And that's going to be at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tomorrow's my mom's surgery. I will not be back tomorrow. I will be back on Saturday morning at at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'll be back Saturday morning. I will do a class on anger on Saturday. I will talk about one of the other stages, which is anger, because that came up a lot today. So I'll do a training on anger on Saturday. So we'll talk about anger. I want to do a training on denial and also depression and bargaining. So I'll just start breaking down the 5 stages. Since we started here, that's a great place for us to go. Anticipatory grief. Anybody who is in anticipatory grief, remember that your person is still alive. Try to be there with them as much as you can. Here's the other thing about anticipatory grief. As bad as you think it is right now, it is going to be much worse. And that is the truth. That is absolutely the truth. Absolutely the truth. All right, friends, I am going to hit the road. I've got to drive back to my mother's and be there for her. I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you so much, Sandra. I'm honored to be here. What she said, prayers to you and Mama's procedure tomorrow. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'll see you guys all on Saturday morning, and we're going to break down anger. Okay? I love you. I'll see everybody who's going to be in PPG tonight in Honor Society. Thank you. Jeez, my computer is not doing